The nice people at IK Multimedia have sent me a copy of their new Tonex signature collection called the Royal 45 Legends, and it's out today, hence my video being released a day earlier than usual. Now this is a collection that runs on the Tonex platform. It's a collection of 3 Marshall JTM 45. These are museum grade versions of these amps, 3 slightly different versions of the amp that all sound a little bit different, that have all been meticulously captured using this special software. And to coincide with this release, if you've got one of the TONEX ONE Plus pedals, or even if you're going to buy one in the future, as soon as you register that device, you're going to get a free copy of this collection. So I think a good way to start this video, I'm going to show you a track that I've put together using this collection. I'm using 3 of the presets, and I'm going to put the name of the preset with a picture of it that's running on my plug-in on my computer next to me while I'm playing it, and I do some bits on the Les Paul and on the Strat, so you can hear the difference between the humbucker and the single coil. Now I'm going to put the beginning of this track here so you can have a listen, a little taster, then I'm going to put the rest of it in its entirety at the end of the video, and see if you can spot the end of the video when I break a fingernail and kind of fluff my playing, and then at the end, and the rest of the track is going to be at the end of the video, along with the slight break of fingernail. Now I'm going to go into more detail about these 3 amazing Marshalls that they've captured, but first of all I want to talk about the Tonex platform. Now it's a whole ecosystem of hardware and software, and it's based on this AI amp modelling technology, and what it does, as far as I understand it, because this is far too clever for me, and you can do this yourself, it captures an individual amp. So this is aside from, it's a different way of doing it from a lot of these kind of amp sims. They model each individual component electronically and then put them all together, and that gives you the sound of an amp. But what this does, it takes an actual amp, and what they do is you send a sound from the software. You can do this yourself, but this collection, it's been done by professionals with amazing gear using an amazing amp. So you can do it with your own amp. But what it does, it sends sounds from the software into the amp, and you play these sounds through the amp, and these sounds, they push the amp in certain ways and get it to react in certain ways. And then what you do, you put a mic in front of the amp which records the way that these sounds come out of the amp, sends it back into the computer, and this neural network then does this clever stuff and creates an exact model of the amp. Go online and watch the videos of people doing this. I'm not going to cover this in this video, but what comes out of this neural network afterwards is indistinguishable from the amp, the way that you're hearing it through the mic. It's unbelievable, it's indistinguishable. Go and check it out. And what it means as well is you can get a digital version of these incredibly rare, amazing amps, or even unique amps, so there's only one of them in the world that only one person can have, but you can get digital copies of these, and they react just like the original amp. It's amazing. Go and check it out. So these models, like in this collection, this new collection, they run on the Tonex platform, and that runs on, you can run it on your Mac like I do, you can run it on a PC, you can run it on iOS, you can run it on Android, plus they have a selection of different pedals that you can run these on, not to mention like a little practice headphone thing that they run on. There's also a box that you can get so you can do your own captures, and there's also, and I like the look of this, which this has never appealed to me before, but having tried these, is so good, these sounds. I'm looking at these, I don't think I've got room for one, but they do a full range guitar cab, which has got all kinds of special things on that you can run the hardware through, so you can essentially go and do gigs as if you're using a normal guitar amp with all these amazing amps at your fingertips. Also, as part of this ecosystem, you've got signature collections. Joe Satriani, for example, has done one where he's handpicked a load of his amps and he's captured them, he's dialed in the sounds that he likes. And on top of that, there's another part of it called ToneNet, and what that is, it's like this big sort of sharing platform, so anyone who's got one of these devices, they can do the capture of their own amp, or even use some of the collections they bought and create all these presets and upload them to share for people. And once you join yourself, you can upload your own amps and your own collections yourself to share with people. So as I say, I wasn't previously familiar with this Tonex platform. I did know about it, but I hadn't used it, so I'm so pleased I've now used it. It's amazing technology. I'm very much used to hearing my amp now through, well, my in-ear monitors, but I've been sitting here using it with headphones, and it is like playing through an amp. It's not just the sound of it, it's the feel of it, the way it reacts. So I think without further ado, I'm going to go over to the computer, I'm going to show you the interface that I'm running on my Mac, and I'm going to play a bit of guitar through it so you can see how it all works. This is the desktop version running on my Mac of the Tonex app. And this is, I'm running it in standalone mode at the moment, but I can open this up as a plug-in in my DAW as well, so it looks exactly the same in the DAW. But I'm running it standalone, and that I actually like this, the fact that there is a standalone app, because I've got other guitar amp sim things like this that don't have a standalone app, and I actually find when I'm tracking guitar, no matter how small you set the buffer, you will always get a bit of latency if it's running as a plug-in in the DAW and you're monitoring through it. I can notice the difference. If there's a standalone app, the way I do it is I track through the standalone app, which then puts a clean sound into the DAW, and then you apply the plug-in afterwards, and I find that's a much more satisfactory way of doing things. So actually, even when I'm using that well-known Paradise Guitar Studio thing, I don't track with it because it's too much latency, so I will, well, if I even bother using the Paradise thing, because I like this so much. So anyway, this is the interface. So if we go through these different filters, the first one, this is for when they've captured the amp head on their own, so you can use your own cabinet IRs. So we can just filter here, and as you see on the cab based on column is empty, and these are just the, can I expand them out? Yeah, there we go, expanded it out. These are just the different, and it's got brackets amp, so these are just there's what's that, 6 different captures there that haven't got a cab in them. And then you've got the ones that have got a pedal on as well, and just the amp. And these are the captures where they captured it with a classic stomp box going into it, so you've got the clon and a tube screamer on these particular ones. And these are good. I use some of these. It's quite nice having those, just pushing the front end of the amp a little bit more. And then the ones that I've used in this in that demo track that I played earlier, because I haven't got my own IR that I prefer. And actually, I'm often with these things, they've captured these fantastic cabinets. What's the point in trying to put my own cabinet on, because it's not going to sound as good, is it? So these are the amp without the pedal captures, and then amp with the pedal captures. So as you can see, they've got a JHS Morning Glory tube screamer, the Vemoram Jan Ray, Boss ST1, EHX Big Muff. So let's go back to let's turn all the filters off actually, and you've got the different characters and stuff that you can, all these different filters which you can apply, which in this case these are less useful because this is quite a specific collection, which is great. So this first amp let me talk about these amps. I'm going to play through these in a minute, but let's go through the amps, because I think we've got to be nerdy with this, haven't we? Because this is, you know, these are proper nerdy, nice amp captures, so we need to look into the details, because this is important stuff. So these three amps, they're three specific amps, so you're getting the sound of these three specific amps, which you'd never be able to do otherwise, because these are very rare, well looked after examples of these amps. And the JTM45, this was kind of the first amp that Marshall created. He kind of based the circuit on the Fender Bassman, so it's British made, so people could get that sound in this country. And he kind of pretty much copied the Bassman, which I think actually Leo Fender, a lot of his early circuits he copied out of valve, or tube as they call them, circuit diagrams. He just sort of copied them and then manufactured them. And then Jim Marshall copied or one of his tech guys copied the circuit largely. There were small changes like the preamp valve and things like that. And these are three examples of those early amps, and these are kind of prior to what became known as the Plexis. The Plexis were a little bit later, and they were the 50 and 100 watt ones, but these are the 45 watt ones, which I believe was like in the Clapton combo as well, but these are the heads. And this first one, this is a white TONEX one, and let me read this because I haven't memorized everything. This is one of fewer than 8 that were produced, and they were produced for Brian Poole and the Tremolos, and they offer open dynamic response with rich harmonics, exceptionally touch sensitive. And if we look on here, if I click over to the left, we've got this info tab. So it tells you in great detail about how this capture was done. So it starts off, it tells you the amp that's used, and in this case it's the black logo. I was just looking thinking black, but what it means is it was where it says Tonex there, it was the Marshall was written in black. Character drive, so it's mainly, you've got drive, high gain, and there's a couple of clean ones which I used on the Strat on that track. And then the channel, it's got the different inputs, so it's the high gain, and I believe there's a jumpered one as well. And then it tells you further down, actually that first one I was just looking at, that was one of the amp only things, so that's why it didn't give us all the other details. So then it tells you what the type of cab it was used, that it's a 4x12, and then it shows you the microphones that we use, so SM57, R121, and it tells you the outboard gear that it was recorded through. So this was recorded through Neve preamps, and how do you say that, Uri, whatever that is. So there we are, and then a little comment, loaded with 60 Celestion G12. So you can, they've all been captured with various different cabs, with various different microphones to get those different options, which, you know, when you're playing live or recording, sometimes there's characters in those things that those microphones or those particular cabs capture that sonically fit with the track. So it's great to have all these different options, and there's 50 options, all these permutations of different amps and cabs and microphones. So the second amp, this is, I'm going to have to read this. This is an early 64 black panel, and this, I think, if we look here, will be known as the red logo, 1964 red logo. This particular example had rare components, extraordinary dynamic sensitivity, articulate response and harmonic complexity with a lively feel that reacts instantly to picking dynamics and volume changes. So this is a slightly later than the other one, and it's got slightly different character to that previous one. And as you can see here, this particular capture, it's got a stomp box in front of it, it's got the tube screamer. High gain, the high gain ones are the ones that have got the pedals in front of them, I believe, otherwise they're classed as drive, so that's a good way of selecting which ones you want to use. And this particular one, this is loaded with the same, they've used the same mics and same preamps. Let's go to a different one and just see if we can look. So that, this one is used with a MD421 and a U87 mic through a Focusrite preamp. So there's various different permutations. And then the third amp, which actually the third one was my favourite. I don't know why, just something about this one that I particularly liked. And this is the transition era, 1965. I believe the previous two amps, the white one and the red logo one, they used 6L6s as the power amp valve. But this one used KT66s, which is what the later Plexi used. So it went from using the same as the Fenders to using what we classically know as the Marshall power amp valve of choice. So this has got KT66 tubes and RS transformers. It's warmer, smoother voice with a more rounded overdrive character, thick, harmonically rich tones with a slightly more controlled response as gain increases. So there we are, there's the three amps. I'm going to get some guitars now and play through them so you can hear them. Okay, let's start off with the Les Paul. I'm going to start off on the white TONEX amp. And these captures, there's no reverb or anything, these are the raw captures. There are presets which I shall come to later, but these are just the raw captures, and I'll leave the details, info pane open on the left so you can see the mic and the cabinets and stuff that are being used, and I'll just go through them. And what I'm suspecting is, as well as the different mics and the preamps and stuff which alter the tonal character, they've been captured with the sort of gain set at different levels and the EQs set differently. But you can alter the EQs, I'll show you that in a minute. And some of these are captured with pedals in front of them. So I just start off. So that's on the neck pickup, sorry, the bridge pickup with the volume on full. You can hear how it cleans up. Angry Warden. You can hear that one's got more gain on it. It's got less of a mid bump, probably a bit more top on it, maybe the middle rolled off. But you can compensate for that. If you like the sound of that and you go, well, actually I could do with it being a bit more middly, you can go. I'm not totally sure how these work. I don't know whether these EQs and gain and volume settings, they're kind of applied in software to the snapshot of that amp being captured, but they work very naturally, much like an amp. So you can even hear, like with the gain, I can roll the gain back. I just turned it off, but and they're all kind of set on this flat, which I assume it is, you know, giving you the most sort of transparent way that it was captured, and then you can tweak them to make them fit for what you want. So I don't know, but maybe that's a bit like when they model amps, you know, component by component, maybe they're using that element superimposed on the capture to give you that kind of flexibility. But it's a very neat, flexible type of adjustment you can make. It's not like, oh, it's just filtering off the treble. It sounds like the amp having the treble turned up and down, the way it works. Just back that off. It's really realistic the way it does it. Let's try it on the neck pickup. That's on full. Let's back it off a bit. On full, and then it's sort of an example of the touch sensitivity. It does sound like playing through an amp, and I'm used to hearing my amp these days because I use in-ear monitors a lot. So I'm used to hearing what my amp sounds like through headphones with a mic in front of it, rather than hearing what it sounds like down by my ankles. I've just got used to it. So this is a very familiar sound, and it feels very realistic. Not only sounds realistic, because I find, you know, a lot of these amp sims, they do sound realistic, but it's more to do with the feel, and this really feels like an amp. So let's have a listen to a couple. This is one with a clon in front of it. So you can hear that kind of mid bump. And all the ones with stomp boxes put in front of them, they're marked as high gain character. The ones without are marked as drive, and there's a couple of clean ones as well. But because obviously you're getting more gain when the pedal stage is added in front of the amp. But they still clean up. So bridge pickup, that's on 10. Let's back off a bit. Let's have a listen to the JHS Morning Glory. It's a kind of flatter response. I always think maybe it's more bottom end, but maybe it's just because the mid isn't bumped. Back it off. So many options. You can just back the guitar and get those different sounds. So green pedal help. I think I use this one on the track. That's just a classic sound, and I like that. So there we are. That's the. I won't go through all of them. Oh, let's maybe have a look at the Jan Ray here. But you still get the character of the guitar. You can do all the things. You can change the pickups. It's not so much gain there. It doesn't make any difference what you do. Some things, when you've got particularly got more gain, it doesn't matter what you do on the guitar. It basically sounds the same. But you can hear every intricacy, the touch dynamics, how much you're adjusting the volume. It's all coming out in this because it's just reacting the way an amp does. So let's go on to the second amp. This is the red logo one, and let me just show you on the filters here. I've just filtered out the ones that haven't got the cabs because I haven't got my own IR that I want to use, and I think these guys know what they're doing with their cab emulations and stuff. They're going to get a better sound than I am. So let's have a look at these. This is Kiss of Power, this one's called, and you can see on the left I've left the info pane open. Sounds different to the other amp. Let's clean it up. And you can hear even the way it cleans up, it reacts differently to the other amp. This seems to be more retain a more even sound as it's backed off than the other one. Let's have a listen to it with a clon in front of it. Tube Screamer. I know I keep playing the same thing over and over, but it gives you a better idea of comparing things, doesn't it? I do like these ones with the Tube Screamer. There's a reason why that's a classic sound, isn't it? Tube Screamer just seems to match that Marshall sound. What else have we got here? Boss SD1. Right, let's move on to the third amp, and this is a clean capture, so I'm assuming this is the only one of the three that has clean capture, so I'm guessing it had a bit more headroom than the other ones, or a more attractive clean sound. So it does break up a little bit with the humbuckers, unless you back it off. Let's put it on both pickups together. And then you wind it up, you get that nice sort of edge of breakup. Unless you hit it gently. And I use this one on the Strat on the track. So let's go to, I won't go straight to a high gain one, let's try a standard drive one. It does have a nice warm sound, this one. It's quite a lot of gain there, that must be quite wound up. If you back it off. Bright Grit, what's that one? So let's have a listen to one with a Tube Screamer in front of it. And then a big muff. All that kind of fuzzy bottom end. And, you know, with these, as I said, the EQ's really versatile. So if you like the sound of that, but it's got a bit too much bottom end in it, you can dial it out. There we are. I'm now going to move on to the Strat so you can hear what it sounds like with some single coil pickups. Right, I've got the Strat. This is a 50s Strat, or a copy of a 50s Strat. I did have a real 50s Strat, that'd be nice. So it's got that 50s characteristic, which do sound different to the 60s ones. Just thought I'd mention it. And also, another thing to point out here, very useful because it's got it off the wall and it was slightly out of tune. You've got the little tuner icon down the bottom there. So I didn't have to dig a tuner out to start, so that was handy. So let's start again at the top of the list with the white one. And obviously you've got less gain. I have adjusted my input gain just to balance it for level more than anything. But obviously the single coil has less output than the humbucker, so you're going to get less drive into the front of the amp. So that's with the volume on full on the guitar. Neck pickup, middle pickup, bridge pickup. Still sounds fat even with that bridge pickup, even on this guitar. And then the in-betweeny sound. Let's back it off. So you get quite a clean sound. Let's just go on to one of these others. This sounds great. You can hear this guitar because it's not shielded. You can hear. I don't know if you can hear it on the recording, but you get a slight sound off the computer. But I've got a Marshall over there, and I don't mind the sound of this guitar through it, but it doesn't. It's a JCM 800 combo, but this just sounds great. If I had an amp that sounded like this to use live, really like the sound of it. So let's have a listen. One of the higher gain sounds with the clon. Can really hear the difference between the single coils. I always think that there's sort of more definition because it's not such a fat sound. It's not so squashed and compressed sounding. I was always a Strat man, really. I mean, I've only had the Gibsons a relatively short amount of time. I've always played Fenders. But I go through phases. I think I like the Gibson, then I go back to my Fender and I think, oh, I like that. Let's have a listen to the Morning Glory sound. Now look, touch sensitivity. I'm backing it off with the volume. Sort of sounds like that, doesn't it? Right, now with the tube screamer. I like that. And then the Van Ray. Oh, yeah, we did in the Morning Glory. This is one with the Van Ray. Right, let's move on to the second amp. Basic but cool. What's that one sound like? Oh yeah. Warm it up. And you can still see, keep an eye on the info pane there, rather than me reading them out. Right, one with a clon. Oh, a lot of gain there. It still sounds like a Strat. It's not like it's so much that you can't tell the difference. Tube screamer. Boss SD1. kind of default to playing an E on the Strat, but A on the Les Paul. I wonder why that is. Anyway, let's go to the third amp. Now this is the clean one that I used on the track with the Strat. So that's with the volume on full on the guitar. Get that little bit of break up, back it off, clean as a whistle. It's worth mentioning that I've got this plugged into my UAD Apollo, which into the front, which has got the high impedance inputs, and I did have it. I tried it. I was having technical issues with being able to hear the standalone app in this bit of screen capture software, which I've now sorted. But in the process of doing that, I plugged into the back of it, which doesn't have the high impedance thing, and it doesn't work very well. You know, if you back the volume off, it doesn't react like it does on a guitar amp. So if you do have an interface, whatever interface you're using, it does need to have that kind of high impedance guitar friendly input for this to work and react properly like a cab. But that's the same for any guitar amp sim. Just thought I'd mention that, because I have to say I didn't really realise that was quite so much of an issue. It works fine if you've got the volume on full, but as soon as you start backing it off, it's like everything disappears as soon as you take it off full, which presumably is to do with the impedance. I don't know any of that technical stuff at that level, but basically if you're going to plug into any of these kind of things, then you need to be plugging into a high Z input. So let's have a listen to a King of Dynamics. Let's have a listen to that one. Well, that's a nasally one, isn't it? So listen to Old School General. That's a flatter sounding one. Let's have a listen to one with a tube screamer. What's the big muff? What's the big muff sound like with the Strat? Like it. Sounds like you've rolled the tone off, but you haven't. So there we are. That's the. Oh, there's one more clean. How's this? What's this one sound like? So there we are. As I say, these are the raw captures, but you've also got the presets. And over here, you click this button that says Related Presets just to get your presets. Well, it's showing them everything in that collection I've got, but then it selects them for the this particular collection. And these have got the different effects. As you look across the top of the screen here, you've got this effects chain, and you can add various pedals and effects into it. And these are ones that are. These are the 10 that have been shipped with the collection. And as I mentioned before, the ToneNet thing up here, you click on that, and this won't have any for this collection yet because it hasn't come out while I'm filming this. It will have come out now, so you'll probably start to get some for this collection. But these have all been shipped, and they've got the different effects on. So let me just play you a couple of these. So from left to right, this is a... Hopefully you can hear this in stereo on my capture, but this is a kind of panning thing from left to right. And if we look up here, I can select on the different things. So it's telling you what... Oh, that's interesting. That's their Tonex cab. That's the physical bit of hardware you can actually buy. And that kind of models different cabs. So that's what they're using for this capture. But it sounds great. And then you've got your modulation slot. Which in this case is set to tremolo, which is going from left to right. Then we've got the next one, the delay, That's not on, so let's hear what it sounds like. So there we go, that's nice. Let's just turn that back off to as it was, and then you've got a reverb, and you've got the different spring reverbs, which, you know, I like to have reverb, spring reverb in my amp, so probably if I was going to start using this to record, I'd probably, you know, I'd add the reverb here, because that's a good sounding reverb. I like to have it all on the amp, so it goes down as the sound of a guitar, as you would if you were miking it up a real amp and effects chain. So let's just go through a couple of these, just have a little listen. Long tail. And it tells you on the left on this info pane which particular tone model it's using. Yeah, old school, general. What else have we got here? Let's have a look. Tube sweep. What's that do? Got a flangery sound on it. Unusual vibes. Let's try this one. It's got a phaser, and it's also got a compressor on this one as well. So these all sound good, these built-in effects and these effects chains you can create. So, and I'm assuming, as I say, I'm not that familiar with the TONEX and ToneNet platform, but people will start creating presets with these different tone models from this new collection and start adding them to the ToneNet connection. You can go in there and check them out and also add your own ones to it. So there we are. I'm really impressed with this, and I think this might be my new go-to plugin for recording guitar. I'm certainly going to use it for tracking. Expect it's going to be my go-to for actually sticking on the track later. Anyway, back to the other camera. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm going to put a link to this collection in the description, and as promised, I'm going to leave you with the rest of that track that I played earlier. See if you can spot where I broke my fingernail. I bring out new videos every Friday. I know this one came out on a Thursday, but that's because that's the day that this collection came out and I wanted to coincide it with that. But I bring out new videos 7 PM UK time every Friday, so I hope to see you next week.